Crit itemization for ADCs has been heavily criticized this preseason, and for good reason. ADCs feel a bit weak compared to all the other roles, but that doesn't mean that every ADC is terrible at the moment. In this guide, we'll be discussing the 3 must-know ADC builds right now that will make you feel just as powerful as any other role. Let's get right into it. First up is definitely going to be Jhin with his new lethality build. Jhin is by far the strongest ADC to emerge in the preseason. There were a lot of indirect buffs to Jhin which allowed him to really start taking over games. To break it down, what's making Jhin so OP at the moment is being able to rush Eclipse, a powerful lethality item, into the collector. These new items are perfect for Jhin. He already built lethality as a first item a lot of the time, and Eclipse gives him everything he's looking for: lethality, sustain, a shield, and movement speed. Then the collector is the perfect second item in terms of stats. Before, after building Ghostblade, Jhin would pivot into building crit. Now he can continue building lethality as well as crit at the same time, making his build path extremely smooth. Although these 2 new items are already good for Jhin, they also enable a new build that he can run to really abuse them, which is why he's so strong at the moment. One of the reasons that Jhin didn't run Dark Harvest before is that his rune page had to be a little something like this. This is because you need Presence of Mind to fix his mana issues, and all ADCs were forced to run Bloodline because otherwise they would have no sustain. But thanks to the preseason, Eclipse and Ravenous Hunter in the Domination tree give Omnivamp. This means Jhin's sustain issues are immediately fixed from his runes and first item. This opens him up to run Coup de Grace instead of Bloodline in the Precision tree. It may seem like a small thing, but it's actually huge in allowing him to abuse an execute style build. Jhin now has execute damage on his 4th shot, each of his ultimate shots, Dark Harvest, and Coup de Grace. All this execute damage allows him to put his targets into the collector's range very easily, leading into some really disgusting executes that would normally not be possible. It is very scary being at low health around Jhin right now, since he will finish you off incredibly easily and forces his opponents to play much safer than they otherwise would need to. Not only is this build powerful against squishy targets, but the new items remove his biggest weakness as well. Tanks are not countering Jhin as they're supposed to, since Eclipse shores up his weakness. It gives him max health damage on top of scaling percentage armor penetration after completed items. Then he can just go Lord Dominik's Regard as his 3rd item for more crit and armor pen, making tanks a non-issue now. All of these points are why we're recommending Jhin to climb in Season 11. He is what every ADC wants to be right now, and this build is likely here to stay for a while. Speaking of his build, here's what you need to know. As we've discussed, this is the rune page you'll be running every game. As for items, Jhin players tend to rush Swifties, then Eclipse, then the Collector. Afterwards, you pick up Lord Dominik's Regard to keep the armor penetration train rolling. As your last 2 items, you can pick from any of these to finish off your build with full crit. Rapid Fire Cannon, Mercurial Scimitar versus CC, and Infinity Edge to get 100% crit with only 4 crit items. You could pick up a Guardian Angel for defense against AD champions, but we'd recommend not going Swifties and instead going Plated Steel Caps, since no armor items give crit at the moment. Alright, our second recommended build is going to be AP Twitch. AP was already becoming the preferred build path for most Twitch mains, but this preseason also gives him a lot of new incentives to start playing him for ADC mains in general. One was the slight change to Nashor's Tooth and Dark Seal. They both now give more raw AP, especially Dark Seal, since now you get 5 AP stacks per stack instead of 3 AP. At full stacks, this item now gives 65 ability power for only 350 gold, which is about as cost efficient as you're ever going to get. Both these changes matter so much, because raw AP is absolutely insane for Twitch. He has unbelievable scaling on his passive and E. Each stack of his passive scales off 18% of his AP over the full duration. So at 6 stacks, his passive has a total scaling of 108% AP, dealing true damage the whole time. His E also has a 33% AP scaling per stack. So a target with full stacks of your passive will also be taking not just the base damage of your E, but also 200% of your AP on top of that for insane burst. Now Twitch, like Zaya, isn't absurdly broken at the moment. He's viable and can be played most games, but the biggest reason we're recommending him is due to the prevalent meta at the moment. we're seeing a ton of assassins and tanks in the meta because people are trying to abuse Duskblade, Prowler's Claw, and Sunfire Cape. Which means you very often get lobbies like these, where everyone on your team is either an AD champion or tank shakeout. So if your team is lacking magic damage, Twitch is great for covering situations like these. Twitch has also gone up in priority right now due to the itemization changes for Ezreal and Kai'Sa as well. Ezreal lost the ability to go Mirror Mana and Iceborne Gauntlet into Liandry's Torment, which gave him a very powerful magic damage build, and Kai'Sa is also itemizing much more on the AD side of things instead of the hybrid builds that we were seeing before this preseason. With both of those champions being obsolete in terms of being AP carries, Twitch is the premier champion for fixing your team's drafting issues now. The best part about this build is that it changes absolutely nothing from how Twitch is played as an AD marksman. He's still the same old rat who goes around assassinating vulnerable targets, and he continues to be a teamfight menace with his ultimate spreading his poison over everyone, dealing insane AoE damage. But he does get a lot of benefits that AD Twitch doesn't, specifically his wave clear. After level 5 and basing, Twitch starts instantly clearing waves with his W and E. This type of wave clear is crazy during the early levels of the game. He basically just defies early trading rules that dictate whoever has the wave advantage should have control of the lane, since he can very uninteractively clear waves while trading at the same time. His passive true damage is also great when dealing with all the meta tanks that you'll encounter at the moment, making him a great pick in the current meta. Alright, let's now break down his full build. You start Doran's Ring and pick up an early Dark Seal, even if you're not doing too well. Then you rush Nashor's Tooth as your first core item. For boots, you do Sorks, Berserkers, Mobies, or Lucidity boots. It was hard to get a consensus here, since every Twitch main seems to prefer different ones, but we will say that the best Twitch mains tend to gravitate towards Mobility boots for assassinating targets or Lucidity boots to lower his ult and E cooldowns. After your boots, go straight into Rabadon's Death Cap for the raw AP that Twitch loves. Then it's just situational items. Magi's if you're snowballing, Zhonya's versus assassins, and Banshees when you need to block burst abilities. As for your mythic, you can pick this up whenever you don't immediately need any other item. Night Harvester is great when you're against a bunch of squishy champions that you're bursting instantly, or you can go Riftwalker when you want to ramp up damage for longer fights for enemy team comps with a bunch of beefy champions. Also, when it comes to Void Staff, you probably will not need it in most of your games. Your true damage is already more than enough to kill tanks most of the time, and you shouldn't really need Void to kill squishies either. Sure, in rare cases where the enemy team is stacking entirely MR, then it's fine, but that won't happen in most of your games, especially if you're picking Twitch on comps that need AP damage in the first place. Lastly, for runes, just run this Hail of Blades page to stack your passive as quickly as possible. You could run Relentless Hunter over Ravenous Hunter based on preference as well. The final build that we'll be covering is going to be for Zaya. She is definitely not as strong as Jhin is on the current patch, but she does have her place as a really strong situational pick in this meta. The big reason we're discussing her is the new item, Navori Quickblades. When people first see Quickblades as an ADC, their immediate reaction is probably Lucian, and how they could literally be playing Urf on the regular Summoner's Rift. But Zaya may be just an even better user of this item due to how much of her power budget lies in her W and E. Her W is a powerful attack and move speed steroid, which is on a high CD for good reason. While her W is active, her DPS is absurdly high. Not only that, but her E is one of the most impactful abilities in the game when you land a huge feather return. It can single-handedly destroy teamfights if used at the right moment. Like we said, we don't think Zaya will be as blind pickable as Jhin is right now, but that's fine. We're recommending her as a specific counter pick to short-range team compositions, which are what she excels at punishing. Zaya loves when enemy champions are running toward her. It makes it incredibly simple to set up huge feather returns to obliterate people. Likewise, due to her short range, she struggles very hard versus long-range champions who can keep their distance and zone her from afar. Thus, we're not really telling you to pick Zaya every game, but rather as a specific counter when you see the enemy team drafting a ton of short-range champions. She's already naturally good versus short-range comps, but with Quickblades, she can start having basically 100% uptime on her W, and her E will be coming up very often, making her DPS and CC potential insane. This makes her the best ADC at dealing with short-ranged enemy comps, due to her self-peel and all the feathers the enemy has to play around. Anyway, let's now talk about her full build. For your core items, you'll want Kraken Slayer first or Immortal Shield Bow. It should be Kraken Slayer most of the time unless you're against a ton of assassins and really need the shield from the bow. Then build Essence Reaver into Navori Quickblades. That'll put you at 60% crit, which should proc the passive enough for it to be worth getting. Afterwards, it's just situational crit items: Bloodthirster versus Poke, Scimitar versus Crowd Control, Rapid Fire Cannon for extra range, Phantom Dancer for pure DPS, Mortal Reminder for healing reduction, or Lord Dominic's Regard for armor pen. As for runes, run this setup. You want Transcendence into the sorcery tree for even more CDR on your basic abilities. There's a few optimizations you can do here as well. If you know for certain that you'll be going Shield Bow, run attack speed instead of lifesteal, since Shield Bow already has sustain built in. Also, when against a ton of squishy champions, switch Cut Down to Coup de Grace instead. Alright, that's going to wrap up this guide. ADC as a whole may be weak at the moment, but there's definitely some powerful marksmen in the meta who can hold their own in this mythic item jungle. Hope you enjoyed, and we'll catch you later.